Welcome to RoadTrip WDW. I'm your host, Rebecca Schlau. This is episode 7, and today I'm going to be talking about crowds. A lot of my friends ask me when is the best time to go to Disney World, and this is a very complicated answer. I'd say most people want to go when the crowds are the lowest. Most of my friends will also say in the same breath that they want to go when their kids are out of school. The next criteria is people usually don't want to go when it's super hot and uncomfortable outside. Unfortunately, it's pretty unrealistic if you have school-age children that you'll be able to meet all 3 of these criteria. So out of the 3 criteria, crowds, heat, and school, which 2 are your priority? Because realistically, something has to give. My top priority is going when there's less crowds. These days, you're not going to avoid a crowd completely. Disney World will always seem and feel crowded, but these days it can either be super extreme crowded or regular crowded. For those who've planned Disney World vacations in the past, or maybe they went as children, you got to understand how Disney World has changed. I remember going to Disney World, and with the right timing, we could have the whole parks to ourselves. We'd be able to go on rides back to back. It was a lot of fun. We could get a lot done in a day. These days, things are different. You can't just have the park to yourself. The parks are usually crowded. It is so popular. It's the #1 vacation destination in the entire world, in my book. So you really have to manage your expectations. If you've been before as a child, keep in mind it's going to be different. For me, Disney World is still just as magical, just as amazing. I crave going there just like I did when I was a kid. But I have to have a park strategy these days. I can't just go and hope to have a good time. I really need to plan in advance for my vacation. There will be certain times of year where the crowds are larger than average, and as a Disney World newbie, I would suggest that you avoid those times. This will just help make your vacation a bit more magical and less stressful if you do avoid these times. Now, there's going to be situations when there is no avoidance. This is the only time you have off. This is the only time you're comfortable going, and you can absolutely do that. I would rather go to Disney World with super high crowds than not go at all. But if you do have some say-so, if you do have a choice, please listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Don't go around holidays, specifically holidays where kids are out of school. I recently had a friend that was planning her family's first Disney World trip, and they had gone as children, the couple had, but they had never brought their children. And so she was really excited. She worked with a travel agent, showed me a quote for a moderate and a value resort. I looked at the numbers before looking at anything else, and I was like, man, the price is a little high. I mean, sure, $5,000 for a week. I mean, that actually isn't too bad, but I was thinking there's probably a way for her to get a better deal that she just doesn't know about. And when I looked at her itinerary, when she was set to arrive and leave, I realized her fatal flaw. She had booked the week of Thanksgiving to go to Disney World, and her reasoning was solid, just like a lot of people. Number 1, my kids will be out of school this week. It's ideal so they don't have to miss anything. 2, the weather is going to be amazing. It may be a little chilly. It may be kind of warm, but you're not going to get the full summer sun. Unfortunately, everybody else has this same exact idea. Thanksgiving and Christmas are the most crowded times you could possibly head to Disney World. Newbies don't realize the crowds will exist. They're thinking of those other 2 criteria. They're thinking about school being out, and they're thinking about good weather. But I implore you, if you do not want to be stuck in very heavy, severe crowds, please avoid this time of year. Just avoid it altogether. If the kids are out of school during this time of year, it will be pretty awful. Now, that's not to say you can't do it. If you have a really good park plan, Don't let that scare you. If you're not a Disney World newbie, I wouldn't be scared. Truthfully, if I went during Thanksgiving week or Christmas week, I'm not going to be that scared. But I've had years of experience trying to navigate crowds, and I kind of know some tricks on how to get away with it. But if I was going for the first time, and this was going to be my first experience with my children, I want it to be a little bit more magical than crazy crowds. When I gave this bit of advice to my friend, I just saw her poor heartbreak, and it was awful to say, but it's true. And also keep in mind when the kids are out of school and it's near a holiday, the prices will be bumped up at your resort. You're actually going to be paying more for much more crowds, less availability of dining reservation and fast pass reservations. You're setting yourself up for a bit more stress than you probably anticipated. And this doesn't just apply to week-long holidays. I'm talking about Labor Day, July 4th, Memorial Day, Easter. Because keep in mind, adults also want to plan vacations around not missing work and, of course, not missing school. And so sometimes people think, well, I'd rather my kid miss 4 days of school than 5 days. So they'll choose to go around a holiday thinking it's going to be lower crowds. And while they still may get a few days of low crowds towards the end of that week, they're going to be really high crowds around one of those weekends. Like if it's Memorial Day weekend or Labor Day weekend, you can expect that the parks are going to be filled with people out of work, out of school. Another very popular time to go to Disney World is spring break. Again, it makes a lot of sense because the kids are out of school and the weather is fantastic. However, everybody has this thought too. You will experience very high crowds. Know what you're doing. Know what you're getting in for. The crowds will be high. Those who went to Disney World as children may think everything I'm saying is flawed because they have specific memories of going to the parks in the fall, in the spring, in the winter, and the crowds were super low. However, things have changed. In the last several years, there's been a shift. Back in the day, we had super duper crowds in the summer. That's when all the kids were out, and that's the only time people could go. I can't even imagine taking a vacation to Disney World that wasn't hot and in the summer. And that's how it used to be for most of my friends and people who traveled to Disney World. They always thought of it in the summer. And that used to be a very, very crowded time to go. And so people would take advantage of fall and Thanksgiving and Christmas and spring break for lower crowds and better weather, but it just caught on. And now too many people go during those times, and summer all of a sudden looks a lot better than it used to. So I'm here to go on record, guys. I'm here to say it. I don't want to say it because I know there's a lot of cons to this, but truthfully, I think summer is the best time to go to Disney World. But that's only because crowds are my number one avoid list item. Again, that's me. That is my preference. There are tons of people who will still advocate going in fall and spring because of the weather. And I'm going to be honest, there will be very select weeks and weekends in the fall and spring where the crowds will be very low. But then we're going into that other area of your kids are not out of school. And for a lot of us, we really do not want our children missing school. Some of you have really great high achieving children that when they miss a few days, it's no big deal. Other people, myself included, have children that really need the instruction. They really need to be in class. So it can be a real struggle to determine some of the priorities here when planning the vacation. But as you'll see, the crowd thing, that one won me over. I just want to avoid it. I would literally rather take my kids out of school during a less busy time than deal with huge crowds. I'd also rather go in the heat of the summer, in the peak, when it's the hottest. I would rather go to Disney World then than deal with the crowds. Some people may say, okay, why not then try to go in January or February? Like if you're okay taking the kids out of school, then I say, absolutely, go for it. January historically has been a much lower visited time. However, some reports from this last January, I saw that it was actually busier than previous years. And I would say it was either crowded or heavily crowded. Now, the weather was great. That's one benefit. I mean, if anything, it may have actually been pretty chilly, but the weather's great during that time of year. Also, because this is technically the off season before spring break, but after Christmas, there will be rides and attractions that are being refurbished. That means they'll be closed down. So if you get your heart set on Splash Mountain, just be prepared that it may be closed down. Check the refurbishment schedule if there is a particular ride that is super, super, super important to you. Also, one of the water parks will be going down. It will be closed for refurbishment as well. You won't have both water park options during this time of year. You may ask, what in the world would people be going to a water park in the middle of winter? Well, Disney World does heat their pools and heat their water parks. Whether it's uncomfortable or not, there are people that still go and still enjoy it. So for those who want low crowds and low heat, I would try to go sometime in January, mid to late January. I would not want to go right after the new year because people will still be out of school. So then you might say, what's wrong with February? What's wrong with late January? Why not go during these times? Well, there's nothing wrong with it if you can handle all the sports competitions. For instance, the cheerleading, drill team sorts of competitions that are flooding Walt Disney World at this time. Those drive a surprisingly number of people to Orlando. And if you do happen to book a Disney World vacation during this time, I feel sorry for those who have booked the value resorts like the All-Stars, because guess where all the kids and their parents are staying? And then guess how quiet teenagers are. There are different websites and different organizations that do publish crowd calendars, and I think those can be pretty useful. But over the last year, it doesn't look like those have been as helpful because there's been some unpredictable high levels of crowds. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what my top picks are. You already know I do choose the summer as some of my top pick times to go to Disney World. But let me just go over the other times that I think would be better in terms of crowds, especially if crowds are a priority that you want to avoid. Let me just go ahead and tell you some of those. So like I've already mentioned, the end of January, mid to end of January, I think is a good time with relatively low crowds. There will be some crowds, but it will be more manageable than around the holidays. I also think the very end of August is a great time to go. Most of the school-age kids are back in school, and if you hit the end of August right before Labor Day, you're going to be golden. I also think mid-September is a nice time to go for crowd levels. It'll be after Labor Day, but before too much of the Halloween crowd comes in. A lot of people have caught on to this time of year, and another factor to keep in mind, this is hurricane season, and in recent years there have been hurricanes that have displaced travelers. I also think another time to go to Disney World would be the week after Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving is on a Thursday, and then there's Black Friday, and then you have that weekend. Now, if you go to Disney World that next week, I think that's probably a pretty good time to go. I'm saying that now as of February of 2019. However, this year we will have a new section of Hollywood Studios open called Galaxy's Edge. It's a Star Wars themed land. This will drive the crowds crazy. It doesn't matter what time of year it is, the crowds will be super heavy. It is set to open in late fall. Now, you'll have to read into that what that means. Typically for Disney, they do not go ahead of schedule. So when they say late fall, they usually mean late fall. A lot of us in the Disney sphere think that's going to be later on in December, maybe right before Christmas. I am really hoping that's the case because I'm following my own advice this year. I'm actually taking my family to Disney World the week after Thanksgiving. So I got my fingers crossed we will not have Galaxy's Edge open. If it does, I feel fully prepared and equipped to be able to manage the crowds pretty well and still have a good time, but I'd like to avoid them if possible. The next time to go leaves me to our favorite time to go, which is mid to late May. Now, this is usually centered somewhere close to Memorial Day, and I can always expect there to be a bit of a rise in crowds over Memorial Day weekend, but it's really not as heavy as some of the other holidays. But anytime mid-May into May, 1st of June, I really like this time. Yeah, it's still going to be hot. You're still going to get some summery sort of weather, but coming from Arkansas, I'm used to it. I'm used to hot weather. I also think this will be warm enough where all the water parks feel amazing. I think it's also early enough in the summer season where a lot of people aren't quite out of school yet. So I think the crowds are pretty manageable. When I think of Disney World vacations in my past, I think of crowds that are pretty equal to what I'm doing now, what I'm around now at the very end of May. I've also been to Disney World in July with my kids. I've been in the middle of August, late August with my kids. It has been hot. But for some reason, for us, that really just doesn't bother us as bad. We know what to do. We know how to handle the heat. Plus, being from Arkansas, we experience a lot of heat and a lot of humidity. The good news about Florida, though, is it rains so frequently, it gives you a relief from the humidity. In Arkansas, it just builds and builds and builds. So I would much prefer Florida weather than Arkansas weather in the middle of the summer. That being said, I do have to take, special precautions during the summer. We go in the mornings and then we go at nights. We do not go in the middle of the day. We leave the parks every single day to take a break, give the kids a nap, cool off, get out of the heat, get out of the sun. And this is how we've survived, and we've done really well, and we've always enjoyed our trips. I have not gone to Disney World any other time except the summer. I'm only giving you a lot of these crowd information just based on what I read, based on some of my friends' report. But I've always gone in the summer, y'all, and I'm a Disney fanatic. I'm a crazy Disney fan. And I love the summer. My kids love Disney World, and we've only gone in the heat. We've only gone in summer. But if you're really opposed to heat, you're going to need a really good plan to avoid the heat of the day and to stay cool and stay as comfortable as possible. Let me go over some more pros and cons about staying in the middle of summer and staying when it's hot, because I know a lot of you, my friend included, one of her top things was she did not want to go in summer. She did not want to go when it was so miserably hot. And that is true. It can be very miserably hot. That is the main con of a summer vacation. However, again, I think there's shorter wait times in the summer now. I think most people are starting to catch on to, hey, let's go during cooler weather. Let's go during Christmas break, or let's go during New Year, or let's go during Thanksgiving. So it's taking the people out of the parks at summertime. Also, another great thing about the summers at Disney World are all the pools, water park options. My family loves chilling by the pool, and it's a great way to cool off and have a great time. And I've never been at a water park and just felt so miserably uncomfortable because it was so hot. I was in the water. Also, this is a great time to enjoy the pools that your resort has. Not enough people enjoy the resorts they're at. They pay a ton of money to stay somewhere, and they don't take advantage of the amenities. I promise you. Well, I don't promise you, but I can guarantee you most of y'all have children that they want to swim. My kids often want to swim more than they even want to go ride rides. So take advantage of the pools, especially in summer. Another thing I don't like about summer, but I guess could technically happen any time of year, is the sunburns. But because we have more exposed skin, because it's so hot in summer, there's more sunburns. So you do have to take extra precaution to lather your kids up multiple times. Now, since we take a midday break, we lather them up real good once in the morning. We stay a few hours, we leave, and then we come back around 5:30 or 6 in the evening, and we really don't have to reapply sunscreen. If we were going to be staying through the day and we didn't want to waste time going back to the hotel, I would be lathering up probably one or two more times throughout the day. So sunburns are an issue. Another great thing about summer is there's typically summer promotions. They are actively trying to recruit people to go to Disney World in the summer because they have noticed the trend that a lot of people are skipping summers in favor of other high crowd times. So there's often summer promotions, and these summer promotions are killer. And keep in mind, if you've already booked a vacation for instance, this summer, and a summer promotion comes out, chances are you're going to be able to switch over your room or still get that promotion. You'll just have to call and verify and make sure. You won't always be able to get the room with the promotion. There's going to be some limitations to those promotions, but it can save you a lot of money if you can take advantage of it. And again, you're not going to know about that promotion until it gets closer to your trip. Like, for instance, there's one promotion out right now that's really great. It didn't come out until earlier this year. So most people have already had their vacations booked, but if you're smart, you will call up there and see how you can utilize that promotion. Speaking of that promotion, you have until I think the end of March or maybe mid-March to take advantage of it. So you need to go ahead and book or reschedule your vacation to get that discount. Another great thing about summer at Disney World is the obvious. Your kids are out of school and they're not going to miss anything. So that's great. I also love that the days are extended, and that includes the times that the parks are open. So you'll see Magic Kingdom sometimes open till 10. If you have extra magic hours, meaning you get to stay later after the park technically closes for off-site guests, you may get to stay till midnight. And I truly love all of the theme parks more at night. It's so much fun. And in the summer, you really need to take advantage of all the activities you can do in the evening at night just to save yourself some sanity and some sweat. But let's say you're already dead set on a specific time that I've already mentioned is going to be a high crowd time, or you realize after doing some research that the non-refundable vacation is going to be during a very high peak crowded time. Uh-oh. But don't worry. I have some advice, some strategy that you can use to still make a great vacation. Again, I'm not trying to scare you guys. I just really want y'all to be aware and know all the facts before you do commit to planning your vacation. If you can't avoid the crowds, I still think you can have an amazing, magical time. I'd still go. I'd still rather be at Disney World than not be at Disney World. So keep that in mind as we're moving forward when I'm telling you my strategies for when you are going during crowded times. Of course, plan early. Go ahead and get your fast passes and advanced dining reservations as far in advance as you can. For dining reservations, you can start booking those 6 months before your vacation starts. For fast passes, go ahead and start making those 60 days in advance if you're staying on property. So that means you need to stay on property to be able to make those, better fast passes. So this is not a time you're going to want to stay off property. You're going to want to maybe because it's going to be maybe during a holiday or a peak season and the prices may be kind of crazy on property during this time. However, to get the best fast passes, to make sure you don't wait in the lines that you don't want to wait in, you're going to need to get a fast pass. And keep in mind, with crowds being the way they are, even the fast pass lines can build up and be pretty long. This may also be a time where instead of staying at the resort you want to stay in, maybe a moderate or deluxe, you may want to really eye those value resorts. And that is to save money so that you can spend more money at these different paid events that Disney has started to produce. And while everybody is entitled to fast passes these days, not everyone gets to go to these paid events. Now, if you go to one of these paid events, you get something special, whether it's attending a party or getting to go to one of the theme parks after hours or before hours, really limiting your crowds and maximizing how much you can get done in a short amount of time. Now, y'all, this is the way to go. This is the way of the future of Disney World. It is about money. I'm not going to lie. It's about money. It's about if you got money to pay for it, you get those low crowds of your childhood. And that is where it's at. But if this is your first trip and you have a budget and you can either just be in the crowds and stay at your moderate resort, or you could save some money, go to a value resort, but spend a little extra money on some of these special event tickets, which, they're going to cost you anywhere between, I don't know, 75 to maybe even up to $150 per person. If you're able to do it, it can be well worth it. It can be worth your time, it can be worth your energy, and can make your trip a lot more enjoyable than if you had to face everything with the crowds all the time. So they offer these after-hour events, like at Magic Kingdom. They may let you have an after hours from 10 to 1 at night. And from what I hear, they're pretty amazing. They only sell a limited number, so you're guaranteed to have low wait times. They also have several around property that are early morning magic, and this is when you get to go to a park really early in the morning, and you get to hang out for about an hour and 15 minutes in a certain section, a popular section of one of these parks before the crowds get there. And, if you're trying to maximize what you can get, I think these have a great value, and I think there's a market for it. I think people are willing to pay it, and you're going to keep seeing things like this pop up. Same thing with the different VIP tours that you can take. You can hire people from, $100, $150, $200, maybe $300 per person to take these very exclusive tours, which essentially fast passes for all, for as much as you can, for maybe up to 5-12 hours a day. You have a tour guide who works for Disney just take you on any ride you want to do. Now that gets very pricey, of course, and that is a luxury, but this is where Disney's headed. If you want the low crowds during a very popular time, you're almost going to need something special. You're going to need to pay extra to get all of what you want out of that trip. Similarly, you could stay club level. These are at deluxe resorts. You could stay club level, and at 90 days before your trip, you can start purchasing those extra fast passes that I mentioned before. You get 3 extra fast passes for $50 per person per day with a minimum of 3 days. For us, that costs $200 a day with a minimum of 3 days. We had to spend $600 to get this perk. And luckily, my son wasn't old enough to get his own ticket, so I just had to charge for all 4 of us. Now, that $600, that seems like a lot, and it is a lot. But for us, with going to the parks with the little kids and wanting to hit some of those big attractions that are of the same tier 1 level, if you remember, like Animal Kingdom has rides that you can only get 1 tier 1 fast pass. You can't get 2. And a lot of the rides we actually want to ride are all tier 1s. And so rather than having to come back another day, we just rather get these extra paid for fast passes by staying club level. And we get to do it all in one day, one fell swoop. So in some ways it could kind of save you money by not having to go to the parks multiple times. You could kind of one and done a park if you really wanted to with these extra fast pass opportunities. So that's something you could do if it's really, really crowded. During these peak season times, you're going to want to avoid those parks that have extra magic hours before park opens. Those parks tend to draw a normal amount of crowd from the public, plus it draws all of the crowds from all of the Disney-owned hotels. They all have the same idea. They're like, hey, extra magic hours, I'm going to go to this park. So you'll have everyone from these different resorts heading there first. And plus, once that extra magic hour is done, you'll have normal crowds. So you'll be almost doubly packed. The exception of this is for those late night extra magic hours. Something about nighttime magic hours don't bother me as much, even if everyone had the same idea. One, a lot of times those with little kids, they're going to be heading back because they're going to sleep. And that may be us too, to be honest. My kids really can't hang that late. But if I have an option, I'm going to stay later during extra magic hours and take advantage of the night and take advantage of possible lower crowds. Also, if you're going to a high crowded time, just like I've told you from day one, go early. Go at rope drop. Be there before the park opens. The park does not open when it says it opens. It's going to open possibly 15 or 30 minutes before it says it's open. Get there early. Beat the crowds. If you're there before all the crowds, you head straight to whatever attraction you want to ride most and get those big rides out of the way before the crowds start piling in over the next few hours. If you have kids that really enjoy meeting characters and getting their pictures with characters, instead of using your fast passes for character meet and greets, I would choose to pay the extra money and go to a character meal. This way, not only do you get a meal out of it, but you also get to meet several characters back to back to back and get these amazing photo opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise get just even with fast passes. So like at a Cinderella's Royal Table, I mean, it's going to cost me a lot of money, but I'm going to be getting like 4 or 5 princesses in a picture. If I would have just done a fast pass or had to wait in line, that would have been hours and hours and hours worth of waiting around. But this makes the experience a little bit better to swallow during crowds because I don't have to waste any of my fast passes. And I also get to let my kids see the characters they want. There's going to be a lot more to say about the crowds, the best time to go, and keep in mind everyone's going to have a different opinion. And I know there's several people listening to me right now who are cringing at the idea that I'm telling people to go in the summer. You know what? I get it. I'm talking about what I like and what my family does just based on our experiences. So if you have any questions or comments or want to get in touch, check us out at RoadTrip WDW Facebook page. Also, if you happen to be a Midwesterner who likes to travel to Branson, check out my other podcast, the RoadTrip Branson podcast. All right, so that pretty much wraps up everything I'm going to say about this topic tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in to RoadTrip WDW.